welcome. Today we're going to be talking about technology and social work practice. So some exciting things to kind of think about. I know pretty much all of us are using technology every day in some way. And I guess I just want you to think about how you present yourself. I have MySpace up there because back in the day we used to use that, or students used to use that, I should say. But Facebook, how do you present yourself in email? Do you have a personal web page or a weekly or a blog? Maybe you're using an online dating service. So these are kind of all ways that you electronically you are connecting with others. And think about that. Like, what does that look like? You don't need to, that's something for you to kind of process on your own. How is your world kind of set up through those different avenues? In person, when you're with, you arrive on campus, it's amazing how many students arrive with a phone and earpiece in, or, their headset plugged in. So kind of thinking about that, what that is. What message are you sending to others if you're connected to your phone instead of being able to maybe jump into a conversation with somebody while you're walking on campus? Maybe where else you're presenting yourself through the use of technology would be something to kind of think about. What we're wanting you to think about doing is kind of the professional sense of it, and the professional idea of how you present yourself is really important. So that's something for you, again, to be thinking about. I think these are all ways that we can present ourselves, and I think it's okay that we're doing that, but thinking about how you have some of those things set up and how people can maybe find you. I mean, you might be in an online dating service now. When you get out there and you're working, what if a client kind of finds you in that online dating service? What does that kind of do? How would you handle that situation? So kind of thinking about some of those things now so that when you get out there, you can think about how to handle that. So I guess when we're starting to think about technology, it's important for us to think about kind of how far we've come. So I guess I just wonder how many people had a phone like this in their house. Because growing up, it used to take a really long time to dial people, and your finger would really hurt when you dialed long distance. But, this is kind of where we were, and now if you look at it, we have very small phones, and it's all kind of touch tone and whatnot. But I think if you had one of these phones kind of growing up and you remember this, then you're going to have a different perspective than somebody who grew up on this phone, and maybe still has this phone in their house, right? This is actually kind of the second generation, I guess, of cell phones. Which is kind of big. I mean, this is a small picture of it. These were actually huge things, and they weighed a lot. And if you think about kind of where we are now, it's really funny because now we have twice as much information on the phones, and they're a lot smaller. So again, where you are and whether or not you remember these phones kind of growing up, or saw them, then kind of where we are at this point with technology. So have you sent a text message in the last 24 hours? So perhaps a digital native is a young person born kind of during or after kind of general introduction of digital technology, and have really interacted with technology from a very early age. So they kind of grew up perhaps with a computer in their house and a touch phone, and maybe even access to the internet when they were growing up. Versus a digital immigrant who was kind of born before the existence of technology. And I didn't say the existence of television, I said technology. So, we're not talking about 1900s here or 1950s. We're talking about, just didn't grow up. We didn't have the internet in high school. We didn't have the internet even in college. We maybe had computers, but we didn't have access to excessive amounts of technology. So it was kind of very basic. Maybe we're still using using typewriters in high school or whatnot. So, I think this is some of this information allows you to determine whether or not these individuals are kind of texting or not, or what technology they're comfortable using. Because we do know from research that the more use you have with technology, the more comfortable you feel, and the more confident you feel using it, and the more you use it. So it's kind of like this cyclical pattern. So let's jump into some of the technology that's out there. Social media is defined as kind of these forms of electronic communications, such as social networking and microblogging, and it can kind of create online communities where you can share information and ideas and personal messages and other content. So Facebook would be an example of that in terms of social media. So when we think about kind of posting, whether it be on a wiki or a blog or Facebook, these are some things I want you guys to start thinking about. Is this something you're comfortable with a client reading? Is this something you're comfortable with your boss reading, or your parents reading, or your grandmother reading? Is this something you're comfortable with, again, with colleagues, supervisors, future employers? Is this something that could jeopardize your job? Perhaps criticism of your workplace? I know oftentimes Facebook is kind of seen as a place to kind of vent, but everything that goes on there is a written record of everything you say. So kind of keeping that in mind. Keep in mind that a lot of things that we post is really, the audience is the world. Like, a lot of people can access that. And so what does that do in terms of confidentiality and what that looks like? So thinking about consulting with supervisors or colleagues if you have any doubt on what you may post. So you could think about kind of posting something perhaps on, maybe you have a blog or a website or a Facebook account. Maybe you change the names. But if you actually read the scenario, it kind of really sounds like you're talking about so-and-so. And certainly if a client has access to that material, that can be kind of harmful to them. I mean, I had a client who, I've worked with mental health, a lot of individuals with mental health issues, and, a client who has paranoia, if they read something that might not be referring to them at all, but because of the way they kind of view the world, they could see that as something that I was writing about them. So kind of thinking about some of that stuff. When you go out there, something you might want to think about doing, this is kind of a vanity search we call it, but if you were to search yourself, what kind of pops up? You have a really common name, so like a lot of things come up that aren't at all related to you, or you have a really uncommon name and someone with a similar name, last name to you, maybe did something not so cool, like got arrested or something, I don't know. Like, so if somebody were to run a search on you, what do they find? They find something about, like, something, maybe your high school recognized you, maybe you were fastest swimmer in the 100 fly or something like that. So you'll have, maybe your name's posted on the website because you hold the record. Or maybe it's something from at your agency. You were kind of, there's a photo and your phone number and email address because of where you work. So what kind of comes up? Does your Facebook account come up? Is your Facebook account set to private? What kind of pictures may come up because of what other friends have posted and linked you to, and their accounts aren't private? So just kind of be aware of some of this information. Does some of your personal contact information come up? Name, address, and phone number. So again, I think that's not a bad idea to kind of think about that, because clients can Google us, and what does that look like? What does it look like? I guess when we're talking about technology and we're talking about its use and its purpose, the thing that we want to be thinking about when we're applying it to practice is that if we are going to use it, that we need to kind of be keeping the social work perspective in. So if I'm going to go off to a home visit, or if I have a meeting with a client and I want to note to a client that during my conferences I actually take notes on my laptop so that I can kind of reflect on it later, is that okay? So I'm not just coming with a laptop, setting it up, hiding behind it, and typing feverishly away. I'm actually noting to them the purpose of it. And I'm getting their permission so that it kind of helps have a clearer picture for them. Some of the other things that we could kind of do is letting clients know, and this is not something you want to do all the time, but if you're waiting for like a critical call from something or someone, and you have a client in your office, kind of letting them know, I may have to actually take a call. I actually have X, Y, and Z, and regarding an issue, maybe that's kind of general, but so I may have to take a call, and I'm really sorry, I may have to interrupt our kind of conversation. But again, you're kind of letting them know in advance, and you're not doing it each time you meet with them. Kind of establishing ground rules is really important with clients. So clients may have access to you by phone or email or whatnot. And what's the preferred method of communication? When are you going to be available? I'm in the office from 8 to 4. I am in the office from 7 to 3 because maybe you work in a school. What are the hours that you are available via phone and email? And kind of sticking to that so that, clients know when they can reach you and where they can reach you, and that the expectation is they're not going to be able to reach you on Saturdays or Sundays, or they're not going to be able to reach you on X days, because this is your schedule that way. letting them know the kind of limits to communication, especially electronic communication and confidentiality, and perhaps like the purpose of maybe you let them know that they can contact you for email. That is for scheduling meetings. It's not for kind of long conversations or situations, or for them to kind of be sharing with you some personal stuff that's going on. That's actually meant for kind of the face-to-face time when you actually often meet. So again, these are just things that are kind of, think about this lecture is kind of linked. I divided them into 2 lectures because it felt like too much content, but reflect back on the ethics and technology lecture, because this is, reflect on, I should say, the ethics and technology lecture, because these two are really tied together. But I want us to kind of keep thinking about how we have access to so much more material and so much more stuff, and kind of what that looks like. Thank you so much and have a good day.